Not promotion side.
Can you guys hear me? Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your library. My name is Jakia Williamson, and I am the assistant director here. I am thrilled to introduce the Nassau County League of Women's Voters and Candidates Forum. We have the honor of hosting Patrick Mullaney and Alexis N, the candidates of the Nassau County Legislative District 4. Ooh. Together, let's engage, learn, and contribute to the betterment of our community. Thank you for coming out, and please enjoy the event.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully that's on. Welcome to the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum. This event is co-sponsored by the Long Beach Public Library, and I'd like to thank Eileen Lilly and Sarah Nichols for organizing the event for us. My name is Ann Leiter, and I will be the moderator. Fran Weiss will be the timekeeper, and we are from the League of Women Voters, but we reside outside of District 4. The participants are candidates for Nassau County Legislative District number 4, and in alphabetical order they are Patrick Mullaney and Alexis Pace. Alexis. Everybody does it because of the Alexis. That's right, thank you. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government and works to increase understanding of major public policy issues. It strives to educate voters about candidates' views on issues and stimulate voter interest and participation in elections. The League also influences public policy through education and advocacy. This event is not a debate. Candidates will each be presented with the same question and given equal time to respond. We ask that all cell phones please be turned off as a matter of courtesy. Thank you. And this forum will be live streamed via Zoom. A recording will be available on the library's YouTube channel. Although members of the audience may feel strongly about statements which are made, it is requested that they not intrude on the candidate's time with applause or any other audible reaction. Your greatest response will be your vote on election day. Candidates will speak in alphabetical order. The cards on which to write questions have been distributed by volunteers from the League of Women Voters, and cards will be collected by those voters and vetted by the League members to be sure that they are legible, not repetitive, or abusive. Questions must be confined to the issues of this campaign, and we ask that the questions be able to be read in less than a minute. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for an opening statement. After each candidate has spoken, I will read questions from the cards that were submitted tonight. Each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes to answer each question. A League member will function as timekeeper. The timekeeper will hold up the sign indicating 30 seconds remain, and again when time is up. When the time is up, the speaker will be allowed to complete their sentence. Candidates will have 2 minutes for a closing statement and will speak in reverse order for the opening statement. The use of props, charts, and visuals and the distribution of campaign literature is prohibited, and candidates and their staff and guests are not permitted to record the forum in audio or in video form. This measure is taken to ensure that information is not manipulated to create false or misleading impressions or otherwise be edited for campaign purposes. The event will be 1 hour in length. Okay, it's not always easy to be part of this, but we appreciate the candidates coming tonight as much as we appreciate you, the audience, doing your civic responsibility to come and be informed. So thank you for that. And we're going to begin. Okay? Okay. Okay, stronger? Here? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Excuse me, I didn't get well. We really can't hear you.
He's going to allow, can you hear me now? Yes? Okay. We're going to increase the volume. We want to make sure that we hear the candidates. Okay. All right, we will begin with opening statements from Pat. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Patrick Mullaney. Before I begin, I would just like to basically show support for Israel and the tragedy that has befallen them, and just take a quick moment of silence. So, okay, everybody, thank you very much for coming. I'm Patrick Mullaney. I am the Republican conservative candidate to succeed Denise Ford for Nassau County Legislator. I am a Long Beach resident. I've been down here for almost 30 years. I met my wife in 1998, and we were married in 2001, and we bought a home shortly thereafter. I have 2 stepdaughters. I'm also a New York City fireman. I'm looking to get involved in politics because I love where I live, not just Long Beach, but the entire area around the South Shore. I think it's incredible being part of this community for the past, like I said, almost 30 years. Whether it was the Michelle O'Neill tournament that started not long after I moved down here, to being part of the community through all the tragedies that we faced. I love where I live. I love the community, and I believe that we need a voice, whether it's in a local level, even in the city of Long Beach, or on a county level, all the way up to the state, potentially all the way up to Washington. That's basically it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we will hear from Alexis.
I also want to start by acknowledging the tragedy in Israel. I stand with Israel and my prayers go out to them. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for organizing this forum. My name is Alexis Pace, and I am honored to be here as a candidate for this legislative position. I'll begin by telling you a little bit about myself. I am a wife, a mother. I have 3 children who have gone through the school district here, ages 20, 16, and 15. I am a proud resident of Long Beach for over 24 years, a businesswoman, a recent breast cancer survivor, a dedicated community advocate, and for many years have been able to serve this community. And that's what drives me now, is my determination to continue to serve. I have had the privilege of being elected onto the Long Beach School Board, and during my tenure here have managed a budget of over $140 million, keeping taxes well below the tax cap, all while supporting our students and you guys as taxpayers and the community. My dedication and reputation as a strong advocate here in Long Beach, I believe now will help me become a great advocate here and a voice for a larger audience and fight for the community at the legislative level at District 4, at the county level, excuse me. While closely working with government officials, I have seen that there are some inequities that run in the Nassau County politics, and regrettably, the Republican-led county legislator prioritizes the machine over some of the well-being of our community, and it's evident by lack of investment and the astonishment Nassau County surplus and the over $300 million that has not been spent in COVID relief funds. So I'm running for office to confront these inequities head-on, and to ensure that every dollar of our investment is channeled back into our community. My journey into politics is far from typical. I started with advocating for my daughter who has Down syndrome, and again, then was unfortunately last year diagnosed with breast cancer, so I jumped into action again. And I feel that now that's all prepared me to this next step. This race for me is about political courage. I have the courage to stand up for what's right. I've done it already, I can do it again. And it's our moment to prioritize our community over politics.
Okay, thank you. We will begin with our first question to Pat. What are the most critical issues facing the residents of the 4th Legislative District, and what are your specific plans to address them?
So the 3 most pressing issues in this district, I'll start with the one that right now is currently affecting everybody within the district, and that would be taxes. We're being priced out of our area. We're being priced out of where we live. I have 2 stepdaughters, 30 and 33, both married, both looking for houses right now, and they just can't afford to stay, especially in Long Beach. They're looking in the surrounding communities. I think the Republican-led legislator has done an excellent job, as a matter of fact, over the past 14 years with keeping, they have not raised taxes at all. in Nassau County. So I look to continue on that path of not raising property taxes in an effort to keep it more affordable, and then fight moving forward to keep inflation down, to keep the price of goods down. The second issue that off the top of my head would be the one that affected directs the residents of Long Beach and the Barrier Island, and that is the offshore wind project. The offshore wind project that is being laid out right now, Equinor has not been transparent or truthful about what they're going to do. There have been multiple attempts to reach out to them, and they have not been forthcoming with their information. Lastly would be the affordable housing plan from the governor that's being pushed on our residents down here. A town like Long Beach and the surrounding communities is much too dense to roll out a blanket plan for housing. The needs of a town like this are much different than a municipality like Rockville Center or Manhasset. So to turn around and say that we're going to do a blanket rollout, I think is a little bit unfair. Thank you.
Thank you, very good. Okay. Alexis, want to repeat the question?
Yeah, there's the three.
Okay, so what are the most critical issues facing the residents of the 4th Legislative District, and what are your specific plans to address them?
So, as far as taxes are concerned, they are certainly one of the most pressing issues here. I would say that right now, as it stands, the Republican County Executive and also the Republican Legislature has promised a lot. They promised $128 million to be returned to taxpayers in cuts, and that has not been done. And in fact, what actually has been done is that the tax rolls have been frozen. There's a broken system here, and that really bears a burden on the taxpayers' expenses. Laura Curran, when she was in office, did leave a surplus for the county of approximately $70 million, I believe, in taxes, and the Blakeman campaign promised, to get money back to us, and that has not happened. So that promise has not been fulfilled, and I think we need to acknowledge that. As far as some of the other pressing issues, I would agree. Certainly, it is responsible housing, and as a candidate who has been endorsed by many of the labor unions, I really look forward to drawing upon those relationships and creating housing that's responsible and affordable for all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Pat? The salary for Nassau County legislators is $75,000 per year. Do you plan to work another job if elected to the Nassau County Legislature? If so, how many hours do you plan to work as a legislator?
So do I plan to keep my current career if I'm elected to office? And the answer to that question is yes, I do plan on. I'm currently a New York City Fire Lieutenant in Special Operations, Squad 288. I'm coming up on my 20th year, so if I chose to leave, I could leave, but I have no intentions of leaving. I believe most people in the room would agree that the fire department schedule is more than adequate to allow me to hold what I believe, even though on paper it is a part-time position, I'm going to look at it as a full-time position and put into it whatever it requires. I've held several small businesses on the side during my tenure as a firefighter, and those will be shut down if I'm elected, but I think it's fair to say that I'll have more than enough time to fulfill the obligations that the job will require. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexis, do you plan to work another job if elected to the Nassau County Legislature? If so, how many hours do you plan to work as a legislator?
So I do plan to keep my job. I am a school board member, as I mentioned earlier, and I have been able to juggle that very well while attending meetings, attending exec sessions, and being a really active member of the community and attending pretty much everything that I can for the children in the district, inside and outside of work hours. Thankfully, my job is very flexible, and I don't have typical sale hours because I'm in sales, so I'm able to juggle and negotiate my schedule accordingly, and I plan to continue to do that if elected to the Nassau County Legislature. To be clear, I will have to not serve as a school board member, and so that will be taken off my plate, but this would hopefully be added on.
Okay, thank you. Pat, what is your position on the Equinor turbine project, an underground high voltage line under our city? What can and will you do to stop it if you're against it?
What would I do against the Equinor project? I believe everything from the turbines to the underground cable to the power station. I came out publicly against this almost immediately when I started, when I announced my candidacy. I would look to fight this on almost every level, but especially at the local level where it immediately affects the Long Beach residents. When I was interviewing and going through for some endorsements, it was brought up to me that a lot of the information that we've been given is false regarding whether or not the EMF cables are dangerous, that the whales are not being harmed. And my response is the same then as it is right now, is it's very easy to find information that supports whatever narrative you want to follow. But until it becomes crystal clear that all aspects of this project are beneficial, that they're safe, they're costly, and that they're the best for the residents, I'm going to have to say that I'll keep fighting it until that proves to be the case.
Thank you. Alexis, what is your position on the Equinor turbine project and underground high voltage line under our city? What can and will you do to stop it if you're against it?
So, I have been attending these meetings since the beginning, and it has become very clear to me that I stand against this project as it has been proposed by Equinor right now. I'm not against the wind project, I'm not against renewable energy, but I think that, you know, we really have to consider the community and consider where we live. And right now, there are too many unanswered questions. So as it stands right now, I think Equinor has done a terrible job. They have not been a good neighbor. And we need to really stand firmly right now with the residents, and that's what I intend to do. I think the issue here is more about speaking facts, and you know, we can't ignore the fact that we need to do better. So what I would like to do is just continue the conversation and make sure that everybody has the information that is true and factual, and that way we as a community can together move forward.
Okay, all right, sorry, thank you, Alexis. Okay, we're going to alternate who gets to answer the first question, since
Sure.
we usually rotate, but there's only two, so we'll begin on this one with Alexis. Okay, and Alexis, what do you think should be done to address the issue of affordable housing in the district?
Gosh, this is a really good one. So I have 3 children, as I shared, and what we know is that, you know, right now it's really, really expensive to live here. We need to focus entirely on figuring out a way to make housing affordable but also responsible. And that, you know, again, as somebody who's lived here a long time, I've seen the changes in the community, and I think we need to do a better job of creating jobs for people. On the school board, I can say we have developed programs that will train and help our students become active members of the community and creating jobs and apprenticeships where they'll be able to work. And that's step 1. We need students to do well. We need people to come back here. We need the middle class to want to live here. And then we also have to support them with housing. And I think it's going to have to come full circle, and that involves all aspects of infrastructure and just making sure that, you know, we have places for everybody to live.
Okay, thank you. Patrick, what do you think should be done to address the issue of affordable housing in the district?
I echo Ms. Pace's comments. I myself, like I said, have a 30 and 33-year-old stepdaughter who are having trouble finding a home. I also, about 2.5 years ago, my 80-year-old parents were forced to sell their house because they couldn't afford the taxes, and they now live with me. So there's definitely a concern here on Long Island. I do not agree, though, like I said, with the governor's plan to roll it out universally across the area. I believe that we can work with local municipalities, local zoning boards, local building departments to roll it out in such a way where it's beneficial to the community so that houses can come down in price, but also just not affecting the infrastructure of the town, affecting the roads, affecting the environment. This has to be rolled out smartly, and we can't just ignore those other issues because we want to put houses and put units in areas where they won't necessarily benefit everybody. So that would be one of the first things I would do. I'd look to work with the local municipalities to find out if they can even afford to take on more housing. Because like I said earlier in my statement, we can't just, Long Beach, Island Park is very different than towns like Rockville Center, Garden City, Manhasset.
Thank you. All right, Pat, what will you do about the infrastructure issues in Long Beach, Island Pond, and Oceanside? Please be specific.
So what would I look to do regarding the infrastructural issues with Long Beach, Island Park, and Oceanside? The very first thing I would do is all the residents of Nassau County, and especially in District 4, we pay a lot of money in taxes, and we're going to keep going back to that. What we do not get is that money back from the state, right? There's a lot of money up in New York State that if we fought for it, we would get, that could potentially start fixing some of these failing infrastructure problems. Now, going back to what we were talking about earlier, the county executive, that exact amount of money that he had is not over $300 million, it's $270 million now. Some of that money has already been rolled out for infrastructure concerns, as well as COVID relief and some other environmental issues. I would fight to get Districts 4 fair share of that $270 million. The only obstacle would be that money has to be allocated to be spent by December of next year. So the fight would start January 1st if I'm fortunate to get elected, to fight to get this district's fair share of that $270 million that's left over to start fixing some of those infrastructure issues.
Thank you. Alexis, what will you do about the infrastructure issues in Long Beach, Island Pond, and Oceanside? Please be specific.
It's Highland Park.
Island Park, sorry, Island Park and Oceanside.
I think it goes back to looking at where our tax dollars are being spent. Regardless of whether it's $270 million or $300 million, the fact is that money was allocated to Nassau County, and it hasn't been spent, and nobody has held that accountable. So I would say that day one, everywhere in Legislative District 4 deserves to be looked at and deserves to have the infrastructure changes and projects that need to be fixed. And it can start there. It can certainly start with the money that has not been allocated, and we need to start asking those hard questions. And right now with the Republican-led legislative district and also the Bruce Blakeman running our county, we certainly don't have that money allocated to us, and we need to start asking why.
Okay, thank you. Alexis, how will you use yet unspent federal COVID pandemic funds that were provided to Nassau County? Please be specific.
So, again, that money should go to what it was earmarked for. Certainly to infrastructure, things like the sinkhole that we had in Lido Boulevard should never have happened. We need to do better with our roads. Certainly we need to be supporting our police and our fire departments. One thing that came up on some of my discussions with the police departments was their desire to have mental health services available to them and professional development days. That all should have been done. And mental health services for our youth. As a school board member, I can tell you that since COVID, our students are struggling and there's not enough services available for them. So that would be 3 places immediately that I would look to allocate our funds that have not been spent. And quite frankly, again, folks, we should be asking, why haven't they been spent already? The money's been there for quite some time. And yes, there is a deadline to spend it, but we shouldn't be rushing to make these decisions that impact our community.
Thank you. Pat, how will you use yet unspent federal COVID pandemic funds that were provided to Nassau County? Please be specific.
Those funds, again, I would echo Ms. Pace's sentiments. I would work with the most important infrastructure issues in our district and throughout, the rest of the district, as well as the money has been put towards certain good points. It just can't be rolled out haphazardly or too quickly. The current administration and the current ledge has actually given recent new contracts to several different unions with the appropriate increases. So that money needs to be spent, but it needs to be spent intelligently and rolled out in an intelligent manner. Again, the infrastructure issues are probably some of the most important things. Going back to our police department, they're also lacking in some training. Many of our police officers are not up to date on their first responder certifications, their CFR and their CPR certifications. So one of the first things that we would do is we would bring all of our surrounding unions up to the bare minimum requirements of what they're supposed to have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pat, in recent history, a Nassau County executive was found guilty of corruption. During that time, no representatives of the Nassau County Legislature were outspoken regarding this conduct. Will you put party politics aside and speak up on corruption on either party?
100%. There's no, when you're an elected official, and this is my strong belief, you have an obligation to the very people that you serve. Your obligation, first and foremost, is to listen to those people and listen to what they have to say. On the ledge, you are that conduit. You're right there. You're living with the residents. You're the person that they can turn to. So by being given that trust and that access, it's your absolute duty to remain true to not only yourself but to the people in whom you serve, regardless of politics or any other influence. So yes, I absolutely would.
Thank you. Alexis, in recent history, a Nassau County executive was found guilty of corruption. During that time, no representatives on the Nassau County Legislature were outspoken regarding this conduct. Will you put party politics aside and speak up on corruption on either party?
100%. I think for those of you who know me or will get to know me, you understand that I am a community advocate first. And I can be pretty fierce when I need to be. So I, of course, would stand up for anything. When you talk about party politics or towing the line, that is certainly not what you get when you elect somebody like myself. So 100%, if people are doing the wrong thing, you can count on me to hold everybody accountable. And quite frankly, I'm not sure what you're referring to, but I'm a little surprised that nobody did it in the past. And I would expect that in the future, more people than just myself would stand up.
Thank you. Alexis, are you concerned about the Lloyd aquifer? If so, please explain what you plan to do about it.
I mean, I am concerned about the aquifer as far as our drinking water is our most valuable resource. I think we need to support funding that supports a wastewater infrastructure and control stormwater from the infrastructure and getting in. We have saltwater intrusion that we need to be concerned about. We must protect our water supply. Like I said, it's our most precious resource. And here in Long Beach, we've had some issues in the past, and it's something that we need to really focus on in the future.
Okay, thank you. Pat, are you concerned about the Lloyd aquifer? If so, please explain what you plan to do about it.
Am I concerned with the Lloyd aquifer? Yes, I am, but at the same time, I think we've made some tremendous steps moving forward in recent history, whether it was having our sewer system here in Long Beach transferred to Bay Park, and then from Bay Park to Cedar Creek. That $400+ million project, which should be completed relatively soon, I think was one of the most important steps that we made. That's going to clean up Reynolds Channel right here at home. That's one. Two, I think we need to continue to do rigorous testing to make sure that whether it's nitrogen or any other chemicals cannot be leaching into our sole water source. I love that song. And we need to hold companies that do run the risk of runoff, whether it's waste runoff, whether it's pollution from chemicals. We need to hold them to very strict guidelines to make sure that they do not damage or further damage the Lloyd aquifer.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Pat, District 4 is large with many different communities. How do you make sure you are representing all of the interests that each community represent, especially if one has a favorable outcome and one can have a negative impact?
So how would I reach out to each district individually and try and do my best to represent them? First and foremost, I believe Denise Ford has done an excellent job of this over the last 20 years. She has been a tremendous fighter for the entire district, and I look to continue in, if I can just follow the Denise Ford blueprint on this, I believe it would be, and continue in her path. Holding community forums, allowing the residents to reach out to you directly, and speaking to all the residents of each individual district about what their needs and wants are, especially when it has the potential to negatively affect the surrounding district, is of the utmost importance. But without conversation, without dialogue, none of that could even come to fruition. So I look forward to engaging each individual each individual part of the district to hear their concerns.
Thank you. Alexis, District 4 is large with its many different communities. How do you make sure you are representing all of the interests of each community you represent, especially if one will have a favorable outcome and one a negative impact?
So I think that comes to understanding the district and understanding all the different segments of the community. Using Long Beach as an example, West End has very different interests and needs than East End. So if you use that model and extrapolate that to the whole district, Point Lookout is going to have different needs and wants that Oceanside will and that Atlantic Beach will. So I think if you really engage with the community and talk to the community members, understand what they need, understand what they're looking for, and individually work with each of those groups, which I've already done on a level here in Long Beach, just expanding that experience. I think it can be done well. And as far as negative outcomes, I'm not sure I understand the question. So if there's negative outcomes or positive outcomes?
It just says that one community would have a favorable outcome and there could be a negative impact on a different community.
Yeah, so I think it just comes from balancing pros and cons and then being honest and transparent with everyone, that sometimes one community could have one outcome and the other can have others.
Okay, thank you. All right, Alexis. If there is a freeze on taxes, what would be the effect on residents in terms of cut of services or layoffs?
A freeze on taxes here in Long Beach?
Yes.
Say it.
It says, if there were a freeze on taxes, how would that affect the residents in terms of cut in services or layoffs?
Well, whenever there's a freeze on taxes, then it always can have a negative impact on the community as far as layoffs. What we've done, drawing on my experience as a school board member, during the COVID years, we did not raise taxes. What we had to do is work within the budget that we had. We worked hard to not cut any services to children, to the community, and to keep everything as status quo as we possibly could, and just be responsible. So I think, that would be my experience in the past, and how I would use that moving forward, is to, support the community in that way.
Thank you. Pat, if there were a freeze in taxes, how would that affect the residents in terms of cuts in services or layoffs?
Again, there's been a freeze in taxes for the past 14 years, and it's my belief that there's been zero cuts and zero layoffs. One of the things that we need to focus on is driving more revenue and more economic development, so that you don't have to raise taxes, but you still can bring in money into the county, so that you can afford to keep up with inflation and still provide the services to the residents that they need and that they deserve. So again, for the past 14 years, there's been no tax raises in Nassau County, and I don't believe that there's been any cuts in any of the services that they've been given.
Thank you. Pat, how would you rate the current county legislators' performance? What did they get right, and what would you do differently?
How would I rate the current county legislators' performance? What did they get right, and what would I do differently? I think they've done a good job, again, keeping taxes in check. and reaching out to the residents of their relative districts. I believe, for the most part, that there's, again, I'm not on the ledge, so I couldn't speak personally as to what, you know, the pros and cons are there, but it seems like there's a good open dialogue between both parties. So that's some of the good things that they've done. What's something negative that they've done?
What would you do differently?
What would I do differently? Maybe a little bit more transparency. Again, I can't answer confidently because there's not much information out there. So I would say more transparency so that the people who are represented by their respective legislator would know exactly what is going on.
Thank you. Alexis, how would you rate the current county legislators' performance? What did they get right, and what would you do differently?
Here in our area, I believe Legislator Ford got right by putting forth the mammography mobiles and having screening for women in the community. I would like to see that expanded. I would like to see more screenings for different kinds of cancers, do health screenings, vaccinations, and build that out so it could move throughout the community and not just be in one static place like Long Beach. So I think she did an excellent job of that, and I'd like to see that continued. As far as what locally I believe needed to change is just, again, finding out where the funding is and why it hasn't been released out to the public. There's a lot of money that has been held hostage right now by the current legislators, and that is largely ruled by the Republicans right now, and I think that we need to start asking those tough questions and figure out where the money is and how we can get it allocated back into the community. So that would be something that I'd like to see change.
Okay, thank you. Alexis, flooding has been a major problem in this district. How would you address this issue, and how would you pay for it?
Flooding is an issue, and I just had this issue in my house last week when we had some flooding, so I know it very well. Again, I go back to it is an issue not only in Long Beach, all throughout the district. Evidence of that was the storms last week when, you know, Island Park, Point Lookout, Oceanside, places that never flooded before flooded. So certainly we need to think about it. That goes to looking at the infrastructure and how would we pay for it. You know, I always go back to where are tax dollars being spent. You know, and we could start with that COVID relief money that was earmarked specifically for infrastructure that has not been allocated yet. It certainly needs to be allocated, and that could definitely do some mitigation as far as fixing streets, fixing roads, fixing whatever we can do to make us more sustainable here. I think it also is something we need to think about as the environment and what can we do to be healthier for our environment, because we have to acknowledge that we live on a barrier island and we need to do better because the environment is suffering, as evidence of these storms and flooding that we've been having in our area.
Thank you. Pat, flooding has been a major problem in the district. How would you address this issue, and how would you pay for it?
As a former contractor and currently as a home inspector right now, I deal with that problem, or been dealing with it for the past 20 years, especially locally in Long Beach. There's been a lot of misunderstandings, whether it's, you know, you see people, we put a bulkhead now that's several feet higher than it ever was to prevent the bay from coming over. But the ocean's still going to come from the ocean side. You know, bulkheads were never built to keep the bay out. They were just meant to keep the walls out. One of the things that we would need to work on would be putting in pumping stations so that when water does come in, we can mitigate it and get the water away as fast as humanly possible so that we don't see the flooding that we've seen. Again, like I said in my opening statement, we give a lot of money to New York State, and none of that money comes back. None of the very small amounts that come back. I would fight New York State. The Barrier Island is a tourist attraction for everybody in the county, everybody in the state. But they don't give us enough money to help maintain the very tourist attraction, which generates most of that revenue, which is the reason why most people come here. So I would look to fight with New York State and Nassau County to get the appropriate money to rebuild the infrastructure, but to properly mitigate the problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pat, gamblers Gamblers have cited availability, ease of access, and marketing as factors in their addiction. Do you support having the Las Vegas Sands Casino at the Nassau Hub, less than 1 mile from 2 colleges?
Could you just say the beginning part of the question again? You said gamblers, correct?
Yes. Gamblers have cited the availability, ease of access, and marketing as factors in their addictions. Do you support having the Las Vegas Sands Casino at the Nassau Hub, less than 1 mile from 2 colleges?
The Sands Casino has the potential to be a tremendous revenue generator for Nassau County. Again, if we want to keep it affordable to live here, we need to drive economic development. Now, is the addiction of gambling readily accessible? Unfortunately, nowadays, it's readily accessible on your cell phone, and it's readily accessible everywhere that you go. They are going to be building 3 downstate casinos, whether or not the residents want it. If the residents of Nassau County can reap the benefits of that, then I absolutely would support it, because whether that casino is next to 2 colleges or it's 5 miles away in Queens, people are still going to find their way to it. So the $70+ million in guaranteed revenue that we'd be getting from it, I believe is enough to, on top of what Nassau Community College will benefit from it with their work programs that they're going to be developing. The benefits of it do outweigh the negatives, which are already available anyway, so yes.
Okay, thank you. Alexis, gamblers have cited the availability, ease of access, and marketing as factors in their addiction. Do you support having the Las Vegas Sands Casino at the Nassau Hub, less than 1 mile from 2 colleges?
Yeah, I would agree with Pat. You know, the access to it is already there. So this project can create extremely good revenue streams, as he mentioned. I think just if the project is going to move forward, it's very important. Safety is the most critical factor. And I would say in developing this project, it should be done responsibly. So there should be crime prevention, environmental factors should be factored in, and looking at the traffic patterns, how it's going to affect that area is certainly important. So, you know, and again, someone who has been endorsed by labor, this project will provide jobs for many of us. And as I spoke before about the middle class, this is what we need to make Long Island attractive for people to want to stay and have jobs and work and then ultimately live. So I would be in favor of the project, and what most people have shared with me about this SANS project is most people aren't aware, only 10% of the project is actually earmarked for the casino, and the rest of the project is going to have other attractions like restaurants and hotels and activities and things of that nature. So I'm supportive of the project at this point, the way I understand it.
Okay, thank you. Alexis, drivers could pay up to $23 to drive through Manhattan south of 60th Street as early as 2024. In addition to this, the Atlantic Beach Bridge toll has been raised. What will you do to alleviate the cost of driving to work for the residents of the 4th Legislative District?
Yeah, so as far as I know, that the congestion pricing has not gone into effect. So that remains to be seen. What we do know is that the cost of the Atlantic Beach Bridge toll has gone up. And I've been very vocal on this matter. That toll increase should not have been put back on the burden of the residents here, and it really should not be on the back of the taxpayers. So I would propose that we roll that back, or at least have an exception for people that live on the barrier island. Now that they're going to put Easy Pass in there, there would be an easy way to have residents have a pass that can show that they live here and mitigate those costs. Many of our commuters also take buses, and what is unfortunate is that the NICE bus system has taken a price increase as well. Again, on the backs of the taxpayers. That should not be happening when we have relief money that should be there, and we have money in Nassau County. It shouldn't be placed back on us to be paying the money that we should be getting from our tax benefits. So that's what I would propose we look at, is how we can make our tax dollars work better for us.
Okay, thank you. Pat, Drivers could pay up to $23 to drive through Manhattan south of 60th Street as early as 2024. In addition to this, the Atlantic Beach Bridge toll has been raised. What will you do to alleviate the cost of driving to work for the residents of the 4th Legislative District?
Again, echoing Alexis's sentiments, I believe that the congestion pricing has not gone into effect, but that alone would devastate just the construction industry. As for the Atlantic Beach Bridge increase, it's my belief that the bridge was failing and needed a tremendous amount of work, along with many of the updates. Now, again, and this is where to be honest, I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe that there is a discount for residents that you will be getting on your Easy Pass because of living on the Barrier Island. So once Easy Pass goes into effect, that discount will continue over. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat, a recent news story cites five prison guards for abuse at the Nassau County Jail. Do you think it is necessary to address this issue? What do you propose?
So five prison guards were,
A recent news story cited 5 prison guards for abuse at the Nassau County Jail. Do you think it's necessary to address this issue? What do you propose?
absolutely necessary to address the issue. Again, anybody who's given any kind of influence or power over a group should never abuse said power. Several of my friends growing up are corrections officers, and it is one of the most demanding jobs. And having gotten the endorsements from the corrections officers themselves is an honor. It's an extremely difficult job, and the standard that they're held to is rigorous. Things do happen, but the punishment in place needs to fit the crimes or the accusations as they were. So it definitely should be something that's addressed. I do believe that they go through heavy training regarding sensitivities and certain type of actions that they can counteract any violent measures.
Okay, thank you. Alexis, a recent news story cited 5 prison guards for abuse at the Nassau County Jail. Do you think it is necessary to address this issue? And what do you propose to do?
I certainly believe that it should be addressed. What I would propose to do is, again, look at training and look at how we can support our police better. I mentioned earlier that there is money out there, especially in, again, those ARPA funds, where we can have professional development, training, and assistance to our police officers if they are in these unfortunate situations, but absolutely that cannot be tolerated and we need to be looked into.
Thank you. This will be our last question before closing statements. Women's reproductive rights are being challenged at the federal, state, and local levels. Where do you stand on a woman's right to choose, and how will you use your office to defend that position? Alexis?
Well, I firmly believe that we all should have control to make decisions over our own bodies without government intervention or control. So I will always advocate for public policies that will protect women and will support reproductive rights. For me, the health and well-being of women and especially having 2 daughters is foremost, and it's one of my top priorities. So I would certainly legislate and always advocate accordingly and support women's reproductive rights.
Thank you. Pat, women's reproductive rights are being challenged at the federal, state, and local levels. Where do you stand on a woman's right to choose, and how will you use your office to defend that position?
Again, as a husband and a stepfather to 2 daughters, one who just recently said that she is pregnant, I'm very sensitive to that, and I believe that no one should be in a position to tell a woman what to do with her body at any point. That being said, to continue the fight on every level is something that needs to be addressed, so that we need to make sure that all women are heard and that they understand that they do have a voice.
Thank you. Okay, before we have our closing statements, I would first like to thank the candidates for coming tonight, for their time, for their civic interest, and for their contributions to our education on their positions on the issues. We sincerely appreciate it. It's a valuable part of our democracy. Thank you for that. We'd also like to remind the public that on October 18th, here in the same location, there will be the Long Beach City Council Forum that will take place here from 7 to 9 p.m. And also early voting will begin on October the 28th, and it will continue through November 5th, and that will be available at the Long Beach City Hall. And everyone is always encouraged to check vote411.org. It is a valuable resource for voters. It can confirm your eligibility, confirm your address, confirm your voting site, and there's a lot of information you can get about candidates, about positions, and about issues in your community. So we encourage you to check out vote411.org. Okay. Our closing statement, we started with Pat, so I'm going to ask Alexis to please share with us her closing statement.
First of all, thank you for having me tonight. Thank you for setting this up. Thank you for Pat for being here. My candidacy for the Nassau County Legislative District is really just rooted in my commitment to advocacy and my commitment to being an active member of this community and continuing to do and serve as I already have. As a dedicated mom, a breast cancer survivor, and an advocate for children with special needs, I bring a wealth of experience, and I'm really passionate about continuing to serve this community and looking out for the well-being of all of our residents. So, having served as an elected official already and a school board member here, I believe I possess the knowledge and the experience to legislate effectively, and I've already shown fiscal responsibility, and that matters. So, the residents of Nassau County District 4, from Point Lookout to Atlantic Beach, throughout Oceanside, I believe they do deserve a strong democratic voice and one that ensures that the day-to-day life here will be held at the highest regard and that your voices will be heard. I would define myself as a common sense, moderate Democrat who values collaboration and practical solutions. So if elected, it would be my honor to serve, and I would work diligently to effectively represent all of your needs. So again, I thank you all for coming this evening, and again, thank you, Pat, for participating, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Pat, your closing remarks, please.
Again, thank you as well. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Alexis. Again, I love where I live. I'm at a point in my life now where I feel like I can really give back to this community. My kids are older. I was given this opportunity. I want to take advantage of it. I want to take advantage to fight for everybody in this district to get our fair share and to stop just giving. I believe one of the main things that needs to be done is we need to listen. As a government elected official, we need to listen to our constituents, but at the same time, we need to listen to each other. As a former Marine, all the way up to, like I said, a New York City fireman, whether it's on the fire floor, whether it was at home raising my teenage daughters, communication is the key, and we need to make sure that we're constantly listening to each other. So if I can leave you with just that one sentiment, that at the end of the day, whether it's Democrat or Republican, just remember that we need to start having these difficult conversations about what is right and what's the best for everybody, and put some of our differences aside so that we can kind of come to some agreements. The current climate right now in the world, let alone all the way down to just the city of Long Beach, is much too volatile, and we need to get away from the constant blame game of this and that, when really if we just sat down and spoke with each other, we'd find that we actually agree on a lot of things. So again, there's some fight that needs to be done so everybody gets their fair share, but at the same time, there's some bridges that need to be built instead of constantly being burned. So thank you.
Thank you. I'd again like to thank the audience for not only coming out tonight, but for your questions, for contributing on that end. And remember, voting is on November the 7th, and get your neighbors in the community so that they have a voice as well. We want to have everyone's voice. Thank you to everyone for coming. Good night.